You're listening to the Super Domestique podcast, Canada's premium cycling podcast, brought to you by the Last Drop Cycling Club.
Hey listeners, we are back and we have a very, very special guest. He is not only the friendliest Canadian cyclist who can teach you how to do a bunny hop on YouTube, but he is also four-time national Canadian Cyclo-Cross champion. And right here from BC, it's Michael Vandenham. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks very much for having me. And I'll admit right off the hop, I was supposed to be here last week. And I freaked out because the forecast that it was going to snow like, I don't know, 20 centimeters or something. And I was like, I don't want to drive across the bridge. Like, even if I make it safely, there's going to be an accident and I'll be here for hours and hours and hours. And then as happens with the forecast, it was totally wrong. And it didn't snow for like another 6 hours. And I just bailed for no reason. So
Yeah.
I hear you did a great episode though. So maybe everyone should be thanking me, really.
No, absolutely. And I'm just checking that it's actually going because we're all paranoid here at the podcast that it's actually recording before we start.
Was there like this is their past?
There were past experiences, but no, seriously, thank you for being here. I think the follow-up question to this that we've been asking people is, what's your relationship with weather apps when you're in British Columbia?
Don't trust them.
Yeah.
I've learned this too many times to count. Like the amount of times that I've gone riding, I don't know, in the pissing rain because it looked like it was going to be way worse later on the day only to realize it was sunny. Like just the other day, I was on Zwift and I looked out my window.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's blue sky. Like, what am I doing? So I immediately stopped the ride and got off and went and rode outside. I was like, I think my theory is if it's not raining and if you can see definition in the clouds, it's fine to go outside. If it's just like a gray wall of madness, then I don't know, maybe consider doing something else or wear all the rain gear you have or something.
So then you will always prefer to ride outside if it's freezing cold rather than sitting on Zwift for hours and hours.
Yeah, I would say so. I've grown to appreciate what Zwift can do a little bit more over the past like year and a half, but it's my preference to be outside. I think we all have like a reason why we got into cycling.
Yeah.
And it's a little different for everyone, right? But one of mine reflecting on is like I just liked being outside and exploring as much as I liked, the fitness and working hard aspects of it. So for me, I'm like pretty far into my career at this point in time, and it's important to like realize, for me anyways, to realize like this is why I got into it, and I can't stray too far from that if I want to enjoy riding for another 5, 10, 20, however many years, right? Like if I'm just sitting on Zwift every day, all day, I could probably keep it up for a few months, maybe for a year, but eventually that like it'll just be too much. And for some people that's fine. Like for some people, Zwift is like they want the social aspect, the competition, the pushing hard, like that's what they wanted out of cycling and it provides that. So it's a great fit. But for me, it's like getting outside's priority number one, even if it's a run or a hike or something instead of a ride.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny you touch on that because I think in the last few years, cycling has changed so much. We have someone in the club right now who that's his life. It's Zwift. He prefers Zwift. He doesn't go outside. He has this insane social media following that watches him ride on Zwift. Mm-hmm. And that's his whole life. All the respect to him, but I need to be outside with the trees.
Yeah, if you're going to do anything, right, there has to be at least a little bit of like, you like doing this. Doesn't mean it's always going to be easy or whatever, but like at the core, you have to want to do it. And then you can handle whatever else kind of comes out of it.
Oh, yeah. No, totally. So what is that reason for you, Michael? I mean, we see what you do for us nationally for Canada. We see you kick ass in cyclocross. I see you at the start line at gravel events. That's all I see is I see you at the start line, and that's it. But why do you ride? Has it changed?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I certainly got into it as like I grew up on a farm in Manitoba, right? So I think in a lot of ways, riding was like a first little bit of independence. I could get places before I had a license because we lived in the countryside, but only a couple miles from town. So, you couldn't walk to go see friends, but I could go somewhere by bike. I could go I used to just do this ride where I'd like go and stop by the 2 bike shops in town and ride home because I just liked doing it. No reason beside that, but it was like something to do and some sort of independence and some sort of freedom. And I think it just all kind of dovetailed from that. Like biking was this cool vehicle to get places and see new things. And even as I got older and those new places and new things changed a little bit. Ended up being like the chance, to go do these races all over the place, to go to Canmore for the first time to race mountain bike nationals. And when I was 17, like, it was my first road trip by myself. It was the first time I went to Europe was for bike races. So I think there's always been a little bit where, like, it's a chance to go do new things, see new places, and a good reason or a way to do that, a good excuse to do that. And then I think there was also for me this, like, always a desire to see how good I could be at something.
Interesting.
Right? Like, see how far you can get at this really specific sport. And I was like a kid who was pretty good at school and, like, maybe didn't take a lot of effort to do well at school. And I was probably less obviously talented as a cyclist. And in some ways that was, like, more appealing to me. Right? Yeah. Because it didn't come easy right away. Like, I was kind of bad at it to start, and you keep plugging away, and, like, yeah, everyone has some natural points of where your physiology can take you, but it's very much a sport and a discipline where, like, the more you can put in and the better you can put that in, like, the more you get out of it, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, always curious, were you good at ball sports in school? Like, were you good at basketball? Were you the kid at gym class who was like, okay, Michael's awesome.
strictly mediocre.
Okay,
I
perfect.
played a little bit of hockey. Growing up, like, just casually, and I was okay at hockey only because I'm a good skater. Okay. I have, like, hands of stone, right? I played, I forget when it was. I think it was, like, post Worlds one year. We did, like, a fun hockey game, and my wife was there watching, and she was like, "I've never seen someone get so many breakaways and not score." I'm like, yeah, that's kind of where it's at for me. Like, my nephew's a hockey player in the USHL right now, which is, like, the kind of the highest junior league in the States. And he makes fun of basically my whole family. He calls us all heart, no grace. Like, basically, like, we're real good at trying, but the finesse side of things a little bit lacking especially when it comes to stick and ball sports.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could have fooled me, especially when you're on a bike. So I want to touch on this because before I saw you at the start line of the gravel races, I think my relationship with your content was YouTube. Like, I literally watched your videos that you put out, I think for Giant, teaching you, like, how to get on a bike really quickly, or jump over a barrier, or do a bunny hop properly. Where does that come out in you? Because you're uniquely talented at being able to explain it in a how do I put this, intense way. Like, you're not intimidating. And sometimes you watch those videos and you're like, I can't do that, no matter how many times you show me.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's a good question. I feel like with content creation now, this is, like, a thing that I think all cyclists kind of go through, is you feel like you have to produce something. Yeah. And I found, or maybe getting a little sidetracked here, but I found I was getting, like, really caught up in I have to put something out every day, and it started not feeling like myself. And getting the chance to do those videos with Giant, they asked that I do these how-to videos. And it was, like, one of the first bits of content that I created that I was like, oh no, this is actually me. This isn't me trying to be something that people want me to be on the internet, or say something that people expect from me or whatever. This is actually me. Like, I enjoy teaching. I enjoy doing that type of stuff. And it was a product after the fact that I was, like, actually happy with, not wondering, are people going to like this? And so if anything, that experience made me rethink how I look at social media content, and, like, revisit that whatever I do, and I think this applies to anyone, whatever I do on social media, it has to feel genuine. It can't feel forced. I can't be putting stuff out there just because it feels like I have to put stuff out there. Yeah. But getting back to those videos, I'm not really sure where, like, I come from a family with a lot of teachers. My wife is a teacher. Yeah. I've done a lot of coaching in the past, either through Cycling BC's iRide program. I currently coach Devo. So I certainly have experience there, but I think there's just something like I feel comfortable talking in front of a camera. I feel comfortable with this, like, teaching aspect. And like I said, it's something that I feel like reflects who I am better than, doing a vlog or something. And it's cool that people do vlogs. I like that those exist. It's great to watch them, but it's not me. I don't want to do that.
That's totally fair. But so thank you for doing that. I'm sure you've educated a lot of us on how to like actually do that without falling on our faces. But yeah, I wanna also like unpack that more. With social media, I think like a lot of us, whether we're doing it at the highest level like you are, or we're just getting out for rides, like are you feeling as cycling goes through this renaissance, if you don't mind me saying, do you feel like there's that added pressure in our community a little more to yeah, put out that content and talk about what we do?
Yeah, I would say that's true. It's really easy, like I was saying before, to kind of like get lost in it as a
Yeah.
rider, right? And get too focused. Like every time you put something out there, there's like, and people like it or comment, there's like that little endorphin rush. And I don't know how sustainable that is long
No,
term, right?
yeah.
I want to, like I said, I want to put stuff out there that people just that feels like something I would do and say, and is something I would do and say, and something I'm like proud of. And if people love it, great. If they don't like it so much, like that's okay, I guess. But it is, I still find all the time that I get caught up in the like, oh, I wonder why this post didn't perform or this video didn't do well or whatever, because that is part of the metrics. It's that sponsors are looking at, and part of the metrics that
For sure.
I can
For sure.
actually see that are tangible, right? Like you don't see, if I'm thinking from perspective of like say Giant or Easton or some of my other sponsors, there's no tangible metrics that they can get off how many people see that I did well at a race
And then bought a product.
and
or
bought a
whatever.
product, or how many people see, you know, me in the community riding around and bought a product because of that. But there's like a direct correlation between how many views and how many impressions and stuff that happens. And yeah, I guess it's kind of a little bit of a balance, right? Like
It is, yeah.
cycling's different now than it was 10, 15 years ago for that reason. And we definitely, as a rider, I definitely put a lot more emphasis on having a presence online. But at the same time, I had to really balance that to a point where it's like, it's not wearing down and it's something I can do for a few years because it's just an extension of what I'm like day to day, I guess.
Yeah. No, totally. You know, at the end of the day, the main thing you have to do is go out and ride your bike and do a great job at that. And that focus is shifting and changing, I think, in our community. So it's good. It's good we have a balanced relationship with it.
Yeah.
So
The-
yeah. So one thing, when I look at what you do and some of the training that, you know, we're trying to do at the club and personally as well, maybe in a nutshell, can you give us some idea of how you can train so hard to do these amazing 1 hour efforts in cyclocross, and then you can just show up at another gravel event and do a crazy 9 hour effort? Like, has the training evolved over time? Is that years of riding, or are you doing something specific? You don't have to give us your secrets, but what is that like almost mentally?
Oh, no secrets necessarily, but there's definitely there's a switchover point where in my season I go from focusing on longer distance stuff to focusing on cyclocross, and the way that I train somewhere in July usually kind of
Yeah.
you know, the switch flips and we train differently. Like when I'm training for longer gravel stuff, it's a lot of tempo, a lot of longer rides,
Yeah.
a lot of stuff riding a little bit closer to my threshold heart rate and power. And when it comes to cross, I'm, especially as I get older, I'm really focused on sharpening up, getting snappier, getting punchier, because that's the thing that you know really makes a difference in crosses. Like how quickly can you get off the line? How quickly can you accelerate out of corners? So yeah, in a lot of ways, my season has two distinct chunks. You know,
Yeah.
we go from March, April, May. We're training for gravel races. We're training differently, and then racing those gravel races. And then come July, it's like take a little bit of time off, and then if I was doing time in the tempo zone before, I'm not doing that anymore. It's endurance or high end work.
Yeah.
Even then, I think there's still a little bit of a compromise, right? You can't. It's hard to perform as best I can at say a gravel race when you're racing through to February and those races are starting in like April.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But I don't know. I love racing cross. It's kind of been my first and primary discipline for a really long time, and that might, who knows, that might change at some point down the road. But for now, it's still kind of the one that like gets me excited, and yeah, the thing that I'm the discipline I'm most excited to do.
Yeah, it's your first love. I totally get that. So when I was a junior, what I did is I raced BC cross country mountain biking. Amazing. It was awesome. I loved it as a kid. And I gave up cycling because it's expensive and had to do other things, and came back to it 10 years later, got on a road bike, enjoyed that. But the second I got to go ride some gravel on my road bike, I was like, oh, I get it now. This is what gets me really, really excited to be off road, and I feel like that kid again. And so I'm grateful for the gravel discipline, I'll say right now.
Yeah, it's like kind of getting back to a lot of it's like you got to do the things that you really enjoy and kind of connect with you. And
Yeah.
yeah, training is going to be hard no matter what discipline you do, but it's hard less often if you're doing something that like kind of hits you to your core and like gets you excited, right? Something that you really love.
Totally, absolutely. So I sit on Zwift in the winter time, and one of the things I do is I watch Cyclo-Cross. Like, sit on Zwift, it gets me hyped. I'm ready to go. One of the things that I can't get out of my head that the commentators were talking about during one of the races is how detailed Cyclo-Cross actually is to be at that elite level. Maybe you can help us out around what that looks like. Like, they were even saying, oh, he got an extra pedal stroke in before he had to get off the bike and jump the barrier, and that's why that rider was a little bit in front, or she was able to execute that sprint because she was able to just clip in way faster. That's the stuff I guess you're practicing all the time, or
Yeah, small things make a difference in cross, but more specifically, small things over the course of 9 laps make a difference over cross,
yeah,
right? It's a unique discipline in cycling outside of maybe track and BMX that have even shorter laps where you kind of know every inch of the course
yeah,
by the time you line up, and certainly as that course evolves throughout the race, you can make these little minute adjustments, and the smallest of advantages, although it might not make a difference that time through, it might make a difference when you've done that one corner 9 times throughout the race, and then you've done that same thing another 5 times throughout the course. Like those little half bike lengths, little pedal strokes, they add up over time, right?
yep,
And because it's a sport where it's like you know the course so well, you can make those modifications. And I think that's probably one of the differences between the people who are really successful and the people who are just really, really strong is like being able to not just pedal hard and have a high threshold and whatever, but being able to like, how efficiently can you ride? How quickly can you be in the right gear all the time? Can you hit the right line?
yeah.
Yeah, it just adds up. It's amazing how much it adds up. If you can save some sprints or you can get on the gas a little bit earlier over the course of a race, like that's the difference. That can be 20 seconds in a race, right?
Oh, no, absolutely. So it's been a wonderful sport to watch. I really want to watch it live and apparently watch it in Europe and have an insane party while doing it.
Yes.
Can you talk about that? Like, I watched this and I'm like, I want 20,000 people to show up at an event in Vancouver and for half the crowd to be completely drunk and like all the food trucks. Like, that atmosphere is insane.
Yeah, I think the closest
It's-
thing I could think that makes sense to a North American audience is like it's tailgating, right?
Yeah,
it's
it's
tailgating
totally
at a bike race, and there are definitely lots of diehard fans there.
Yeah.
Who like are really rooting for somebody, but there's also a lot of people who are like, "Oh, it's Sunday afternoon or Saturday afternoon, and like, what should we do? Oh, let's go to the bike race. Let's have some beers with our friends. Let's like." Maybe they don't even know what's happening in the bike race. It's just like an event to go to, a thing to do, a big
Yeah.
social outing, and it happens to be in a field, right? So there's a cool appeal there. Like I think a lot of cycling in Canada and in the US is the fandom is from people who are also cyclists,
Yes,
right?
it really is.
And
yeah.
that's really, really cool. But it's not quite like that in Europe. Of course there's the people who are fans who are also cyclists, but there's a much bigger component who are fans just like you and I would be, fans of the Canucks or the Whitecaps or whatever. Like,
Yep.
I don't play hockey. I like watching hockey. I don't play soccer. I like watching soccer, right?
Yep.
It's like something to get excited about and talk about on Monday with your coworkers.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there in Canada. We'll galvanize it and show up to a cross race and scare you guys all. So,
But yeah,
that's the dream.
It's pretty wild. Like if you watch Worlds, I think they said there was like 40 or 50,000 people there, and just seeing the footage, and I mean I was there too, but like just people wall to wall. There's no way they were all watching the bike race because you couldn't see it. You'd be standing in like, it's like, hey, you're in the middle of a field, and if you're like, I don't know, 5'4", you weren't seeing anything.
Yeah. No, exactly. So what's the psychology like when you're, and okay, so I was watching Worlds and I saw the Canadian women dominate. That was such an insane moment for Canada. I think like all of us in the club went crazy. Like I was telling everybody and they're like, Jamshed, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't watch cycling. And then you guys had to go next, right? Men's elites happened, if I'm not mistaken, right after.
So the next day. So the junior women were on Saturday, and then we were on Sunday.
But you guys had to try out the course the same day.
Yeah, exactly. It was wild. Like I raced my first Worlds in 2013 in Louisville, and the idea that Canadians could win a world championship was so far away. Like that would not have crossed my mind at all. We were fighting to finish on the same lap as the winners, right?
Yeah.
And I guess it's just a testament to, well, first off, it's a testament to like Ava and Isabella and the area they come from, and their whole family is a cycling family, and they have done an incredible job supporting them. But like also a testament to like how the sport has been able to develop a little bit in Canada, because I would have never imagined that was possible, right? And then we were able to start going to Europe a little bit more with Cycling Canada and get some more experience. Then you started seeing riders pop up and have these great rides, and it became a little bit more possible. And now it's like 10 years later, they won the World Championships. They won a World Cup. Like, I hope that anyone who's watching that from wherever goes, okay, like there's a pathway now. I know it can be done.
Yeah.
Because that just wasn't the case when I started. It seemed impossible. You know, the Europeans were different. They weren't like us. We could never compete with them. We're just kind of there to, I don't know, show up and
represent
see what we can do.
Country,
yeah,
though.
represent our country.
No.
So it's really, really fantastic to like see that the next generation, the people, especially like the younger women, who are like 10, 11, 12, whatever now, they're able to watch Ava and Isabella and be like, yeah, Canada's the best at this thing. Like we could do this too.
I don't think you can overstate that feeling, and for kids to watch that in Canada and say, oh, our Canadians can do that. Like I distinctly remember as a 16-year-old at like a BC Cup race, and my mom at the time said, yeah, but like Canada's not like a cycling country. So like this is great you're doing this. But it's that proof point, right? That's now there for kids who love cycling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's having that example, that representation of people being successful, that matters, right? It's like same with like having minorities, like it matters. Representation matters, right?
Yeah.
You need that, so someone can look at it and be like, yeah, that's other people from the same place like me are doing this. I can do it too.
Yeah, I like that you say that, because I mean a lot of the sentiment even behind what we are trying to do in BC is create an inclusive environment for everyone, and it happens to be in our club that most of the ethnic population is minorities, but it's only by virtue of, I think, the community here expanding and minorities who are discovering this in their adult lives now are really feeding into the sport and loving it, and we'll see that representation. I truly believe in 10 years' time, the field in Canada will look different, and that inspiration to kids will look different. It's already happening, I'm sure. You're seeing it at Devo, certainly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right, and I certainly hope you are, because you know, for a long time, cycling has been like an old white man's sport, and it doesn't need to be like that.
No,
it really doesn't.
No.
Yeah.
But yeah. So okay. So moving on to more perhaps fun topics. So the producers always give me these cards. I don't really know what the questions are for you, Michael. So I apologize. Okay. You can blame them. Okay. Talk about coaching a mountain bike team, and talk about Devo and the kids. what is that like now? Because you went up the ranks. You did the red truck thing, if I'm not mistaken. You went through the whole Canadian cycling path, I'll say. What is it like when you talk to those kids, and what are those feelings for you now?
My goal with Devo is we have a really wide range of abilities.
Yeah.
This maybe sound a little bit funny coming from someone who's been a serious racer for so long, but like I just want them to like bikes and like bikes enough that they're going to be doing it in 10, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And I think that out of that, the really competitive riders will come through, the people that want to race. Mm-hmm. That's internally driven. That's something that I and the other coaches can like foster, but I'm not necessarily going to teach someone to be super competitive and drive themselves to that. We can help, we can support it, but that's something that's like they're going to want to do it or they aren't. But what I do want to do is just support as many riders as possible. Like to me, the club is super successful if we have, I think we have 45 athletes this year. If we have 45 athletes that just really enjoy cycling, that's success, right? It doesn't matter how many like provincial medals we have. I think those will just come with having 45 kids enjoying cycling. But as long as they all like it and they're having a good time and like taking this sport and that they can do for the rest of their life, that's what I want to see.
Are they so much better than we were at their age?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. The amount, like I started riding a lot maybe when I was 16.
Yeah.
And so many of these riders in Devo are like starting at 10, 11, 12 and they're like they can do wheelies on command and like they're doing jumps that I wouldn't even dream of doing and like all this stuff that just the bike becomes like, becomes like their feet. They're just like, oh yeah, I've been on a bike my whole life. I can ride my bike as well as I can walk.
Yeah, it frightens me. I'm not gonna lie, Michael. Like we have one of the dads of the Devo kids, Faisal, in the club, and he came one day with his kid, and my God, that child can pedal. I was like, his power to weight ratio must be ridiculous anyway. But yeah, they're really in it, and they ride amazing bikes now. And I don't know about you, but my bike was a piece of crap when I was racing as a kid. But
yeah, the bikes have made some big advances. I can't even imagine riding the shore on like a 26-inch rim brake mountain bike.
Totally.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I don't know why people started mountain biking on those. Looking at it now, like that seems terrifying.
Oh my God, yeah. I used to do Froome on a stump jumper hardtail with rim brakes.
Oh.
It was horrifying. Now I think it's horrifying. Back then I was like, look at my bike. It's amazing.
Yeah, this is the best thing in the market. And probably in 10 or 20 years or whatever, we'll be looking at the things we ride now, be like, oh wow, I can't believe that was the best we had.
What's the biggest tech improvement for you personally? You're like, now I cannot live without it. Is it the electronic shifting? Is it tubeless tires?
It's disc brakes, easily. For cyclocross,
Really?
it's disc brakes. Yeah. That disc brakes changed how cross was raced, right?
How so? Tell me.
Just the way that people are late braking into corners and the way that courses are designed actually have all been a direct influence of how quickly and how confidently you can stop on disc brakes. Because remember, we were riding not like V brakes, but we were riding wide-spaced cantilevers so that they had mud clearance.
Yes.
And those do not stop, especially on carbon rims, when it's wet out. Like you were either pulling the brake as hard as you could, using all of your fingers, or you were off the brakes entirely. So having the modulation of a disc brake and the confidence that's actually going to stop has like meant that you can come into corners so much faster. It's meant that you can ride features with way more speed than you'd be able to before. And I think it's, like I said, I think it's actually changed the sport a little bit, just not in a massive way, but just how people are racing and training for it, and maybe how good technical riders, contrary to what you think, have a bigger advantage now because they have the ability to stop more quickly, to change their speed more quickly, to hit features faster.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't even think of disc brakes in that way.
Yeah,
you forget.
That's the biggest one. Like, electronic shifting is great. I think you could win a World Cup on mechanical shifting. Could you win a World Cup on disc brakes now? It'd be harder. I'm sure you could, but it'd be harder.
Yeah, I don't see that possible. Now that you say it, I'm like imagining you guys taking those corners like you do, right? You probably, I guess in some of those corners you're locking out the back brake and it's like swinging the bike right through.
Yeah, I mean, less so now with disc brakes, right? Like the modulation points, you can 2-finger brake on the cross bike, not like a mountain bike 1-finger brake. You can 2-finger brake, and you can get right to the point where you're getting as much braking power as you can without actually having to lock up, and that's a big difference. You did not have that with a cantilever. It was like you were sliding or you were kind of slowing down, and that was it.
Paris to Ancaster. It's a race that means, I think, a lot to you. Mm-hmm. We've seen you win it. What does it mean to you to see that now Canada Cycling has established, yes, gravel is a discipline. We have a NATS for it. What is that going to be like when you head there on April 28th, April 30th?
Yeah, it's April 30th is the race. I think there's a lot of people in gravel who are anti-federation, anti-UCI, anti-Cycling Canada, and I can understand that, right?
Yeah.
Like, gravel was born out of this. It's kind of like a renegade thing, right? It was its own thing. It was outside of the rules. But I think with how much more professional the sport has come, when I started, the first gravel race I did, there was really nothing at stake, right? You went and you did it for fun, and the winner, whatever, got a high five and a beer, and that was cool. But now there's actually money and jobs and all that stuff on the line. So I think having a national championships in that scenario is important, and it'd be something that, like, I would be very excited and happy to win. And yeah, it's like I said, I know there's lots of people out there who are not that happy the UCI or the federations are involved, but to me, being able to say I won something and I'm a national champion, that's always that's a point of pride, right?
Yeah, of course.
So I'm excited about it, and like I've said before, Paris to Ancaster is one of maybe my favorite. They didn't even call themselves a gravel race for the longest time.
No, right?
One of my favorite mixed surface races. My favorite mixed surface race, because it feels more like a spring classic in a lot of ways than it does an Unbound, right? Unbound, you're on big straight roads the entire time that are all gravel. P to A, you're doing a mix of like rail trail, road, and then super technical like muddy chutes and single track. And that, as a cross racer and as like someone who rides in BC, and my gravel rides incorporate a little bit of all of that. Yeah. That appeals to me.
Yeah. Oh, I can imagine. I've been told to prepare to run. That's all someone told me about Paris to Ancaster. Jam, prepare to get off your bike and run through some mud. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, it might happen, right? Yeah. Like, there's a legitimately technical muddy chute near the end of that race that I love that it's there. It's like you can have a group of 5 people and like 2 will emerge, you know?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I'm just so excited that it's happening. I can't wait to see the whole community there. What's your season look like now this year?
Yeah, so Paris to Ancaster is my first race. In past I've raced Mid-South, which is like, I think it's next weekend.
Yep.
But my wife and I are expecting end of this month, so
congratulations.
Thank you. So that's coming up really, really soon. So I'm not racing Mid-South, and after last year, regardless of whether that was the case, I was like, I tried doing too much too early. I needed a little bit more of a mental and physical reset.
Yeah. What's your advice to people like me who are, really having those aggressive race seasons now from a rest and recovery standpoint?
You need to find the times to actually rest, right? There's good events, like it seems like basically year round now.
Yeah.
And at a certain point you just need to go, I can't race 12 months of the year. I need to pick my spots a little bit more. And sometimes that means missing something that like looks exciting, that seems exciting. But yeah, you need the rest as much as you need the training. And I think like taking a few weeks or even a couple months off racing in the off season is really important from a longevity standpoint. Like, not just this season, but the next season, the season after that, and the season after that.
Yeah.
It can be hard to like feel like you're on all the time, right? And I think we even see this with some of the biggest stars in cycling, like Van der Poel. Wout's done a good job of managing it, but Van der Poel definitely went through a bit at the end of the last season where he just raced a lot and he wasn't himself, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't racing like himself. And I think, there's lots of things that maybe attribute to that, but probably one of them is the go, go, go nature of what he's been doing for so long.
Can only imagine, right? The pressure. So it's good. It's good.
Yeah, I always try when I'm looking at my calendar, I've been trying to like pick the races that I'm most excited about and just be willing, don't let the FOMO get you to sign up for other races.
Yeah.
Like a week before, 2 weeks before, you're always going to be like, oh, I could be racing a road race on Thunderbird right now. That would be fun. Like that's the spring series that's going on today or tomorrow. Yeah. But it's like, well, I don't really need to do that. Yeah. I always want to race. I'm a racer, at heart. But is that going to make me feel better in 2 months? Is that going to make me feel better in 3 months? Does that get me to these races that I'm most excited about? And if the answer is no, then just kind of letting it go.
So mature, Michael. So mature.
10 years of messing it up.
Well, okay, so this segues into something that I watched of your content that really hit me hard, and I want you to speak to it. Tell me if it's how you still feel today. I think it was a giant video, and you said, I may never be as good at anything else in my life as I am at Cyclo-Cross right now. Is that something that you were saying in that moment? I think that was a year or two ago that you may have put that piece of content out, but maybe speak to that, unpack it. Do you feel the same now?
I do actually. I think I'm really, really privileged in the sense that I have had the opportunity to go and try to be the best I can at something.
Yeah.
Right? I think so many people don't have that opportunity for lots of different reasons. Like if you're spending your whole life just trying to make ends meet, like you can't go and try to be the best you can at something. You don't have that luxury, and I've been fortunate enough that I do. So I feel like since I see that as a privilege, I feel like I need to take I need to take advantage of it. I need to get the most out of it that I can, because I'm going to go after this, and whatever my post-cycling career is, I'll probably be balancing lots of different things, and my family will probably become my number one priority. But in terms of like external things to excel at, this is my chance to see how close to the edge of the cliff can I get, right? Like how close do I get to that point where I'm looking over and being like, this is as good as I can be, and I can accept that. I don't need to be the world champion. I know at this point I'm not going to be the world champion, but I'd like to know that I did something that I put everything I had into, just even like to have that knowledge, right? I don't know if that is really a sensible or coherent answer, because it's just like, I think as this maybe even goes back to, like I said, as a kid, I was just good at school. Yeah. It wasn't that hard for me. And maybe the appealing thing of doing cycling, something that is hard, is like really challenging yourself. I think there's so much reward in that, regardless if that looks like winning worlds, winning a national championship, or just like, setting a new FTP number on Zwift. I think that's why a lot of us get into it in the first place.
Yep, it's that time, right? I know when I did Okanagan Graveller, it was the first gravel race I ever did where I questioned my self-being at 180 kilometers. That was a hard... Okay, as a pro, please tell me that was really, really fucking hard.
Yeah.
Down those descents on those boulders, I was like ready to cry.
I like the going downhill part quite a bit. I won't lie. I did crash into a puddle though. I won't lie about that either. But I was going up. I think it was the gravel climb before we turned onto the pavement.
Okay. Yeah.
Like near the top of that gravel climb on the last, like that race was savage in the sense that you got lulled into this like false sense of security that you're 160K in.
Yep.
Only to realize the last 40 kilometers are entirely uphill.
Yep. Absolutely.
But yeah, I was in a point there where I was like, this is dumb. I want to quit. I don't want to be here anymore. And thankfully I had prepared myself for that. I think in every 200 kilometer gravel race, maybe every 100 kilometer gravel race, you go through those moments, and it's best just to accept that they're going to happen.
Yes.
And then also accept that like, I'm going to want to quit, but I'm not going to, and it's going to feel really good when I don't at some point in time.
Yep. Absolutely.
Right? Every time you can like push through that wall, you feel super rewarded. When you get to the finish line, you're like, yeah, I want to quit at 100 kilometer and 80, but I'm here, and I'm proud that I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, my soul is down somewhere on the mountain,
Yeah.
but I'm here, and that's
So I was at that point and I saw a bear and I was like, that bear could like if that bear wanted to eat me, I wouldn't even put up a fight.
yeah.
It's a black
over.
bear, it won't. But like if that bear wants to chase me down and take me, I'll just be like, well, it's been a good ride.
It's been a good ride. Yeah, exactly. No, I was there multiple times, but okay. So we talk about faux pas on this podcast a lot with cycling, and maybe it's the roadie in me, but we've talked about like the socks and how they always have to be white and like, okay, if you're gonna have patterns, they have to be horizontal, they can't be vertical. You can only wear bib shorts if they're black or blue. Nothing else works.
Really? Nothing else.
We get a little ridiculous sometimes.
So you're
with our
saying
club.
that when Matthew Van Der
Poel.
Poel won Amstel Gold Race in those white shorts, you weren't like, oh, this is the most insane feat of human performance I've ever seen. You were just like, oh, those shorts. Those are
embarrassing. But anyway, I'm not even going to justify the ridiculous conversations we have, but what's the cyclocross faux pas? You see it out there, you're like, nope, you're done here. You can't do that in cyclocross. We have it with the ankle socks. People show up to rides, we're like, okay, we got to give you a pair of socks immediately.
Oh yeah, ankle socks are tough. What's the cyclocross faux pas? See, I don't think we're really white sock wearers in cyclocross. I think it's too impractical.
Yeah, fair play.
I love white socks, but like, am I throwing them out after every race? I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, just burning them.
Yeah. I guess there's like the cyclocross faux pas, and I kind of hate, like, I certainly want to look at it on a bike, but I kind of hate the faux pas at the same time because I just want people to race bikes.
Yeah, 100%.
But like the racing in like the bib shorts and the jersey, and like you've remounted and somehow the jersey's like ridden up and is above the back of the bib shorts, and that's a tough look.
Yeah, absolutely.
The skin suits are where it's at for cross. You
got to do the skin suit. Okay, that's the hot take this episode. Michael Van Ham, skin suit
but
only.
Above all of that, if you want to race cross, just like show up and race cross.
Amazing.
I won't say anything. Maybe I'll give you a skin suit.
Perfect. You heard it here first. See Michael for a skin suit after your first cyclocross ride. Shaving, does it make you faster?
Oh, I mean, not the face. Having a beard.
You're like, you can see you in the field because you're like, oh, there's Michael. He has a beard.
Yeah, it's like you know, you have to shave your legs, but not your face. It doesn't make sense, but it's like part of the superpower.
Good. Yeah.
No, I'm a very lazy leg shaver. Like I shave my legs for days when I don't have to wear leg warmers, but it's been Worlds was February 6th and it's March 4th right now. They have not been shaved since then, I'll tell you that.
I'm disappointed.
Yeah, sorry. Like I was showing up at I think the first World Cup. There was a race last year where I was like, oh no, it's going to be warm enough that we don't wear leg warmers. Like, I've got a job ahead of me here.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like you need a sponsor for the shaving of the legs.
Yeah,
we'll get you there.
Yeah, Gillette or...
That's Manscaped?
Manscaped, yes. Oh. Yeah, I mean, they sponsor every podcast I've ever listened to, just about, I think, so...
Well, hit us up if you want the Manscaped cycling sponsorship, so... But that's really all I wanted to talk to you about is just sit down and have a conversation with you, Michael. Honestly, this has been so wonderful. The number one question that everyone is going to fucking ask you is about your finger.
Yeah.
It's the most famous finger now in cycling. How do you feel?
I find it a little comical that like the most... I'll have raced for like 10 years, and the most impactful thing I'll ever do in my racing career is dislocate this freaking finger and relocate it. Yeah, it's the most impactful thing I'll ever do. They were like, "Is that the guy that won nationals?" I don't know, but he dislocated his finger and he put it back on TV. I'm like, well,
yeah, you want to see it?
Gotta be known for something. Yeah. I'm laughing a little bit now because I've gone to like finger physio, and it's like I'm doing like finger like weightlifting exercises. Basically, like, oh yeah, push your finger against your other fingers to strengthen it.
Yeah.
Because it goes about that far. It's a little gimpy right now.
We'll get the update in the next few months.
Yeah.
But
do I have full range of motion in my finger yet? Stay tuned.
Yeah, next time. You know what? The only person I showed that video to that wasn't either horrified or like, oh my God, cycling and cyclocross is insane, is an orthopedic surgeon. He said you did an absolutely outstanding job of re-putting it back. So he was like, wow, that's so impressive.
Honestly, people, I get a lot of questions or a lot of comments around like, oh, wow, you're so tough. That must have hurt so much. And how did you know to do that? You must have dislocated your finger before.
Yeah.
And the answer to both those is like, I didn't feel a thing and I had no idea what I was doing.
Outstanding.
Right? Like there's so much adrenaline in that moment.
Yeah.
That like it's hard to remember exactly what the train of thought was, but it was something along the lines of like, I looked down and you're like, oh, that's not where it's supposed to be. I better adjust it. It's like you know when you crash and you twist your handlebars.
Yeah, the handlebars.
And you're like, oh, I'll just reef those back
put it
into those should be straight there and straight right now. Like, let's fix that. That was pretty much the finger logic, and it happened to work out. And then the other one being like, oh, you must have been in so much pain for the rest of the race. No. Adrenaline's like probably one of the best drugs out there. I didn't feel a thing until after the race.
Yeah. Oh God, I can imagine. Well, thank you for doing that. Thanks for representing Canada. And Michael, this was wonderful. And thanks for being on Super Domestique.
Thanks so much for having me, Jamshed. It's awesome. And awesome to be a part of this.
I'll see you at the start line, but I'll just see you at the start line and that'll be it. And then maybe at the finish line after.
Maybe you're selling yourself short.
That's okay.
I'm gonna have
that's my strategy.
I'm gonna have like a 4-week-old come Paris to Ancaster, so who knows?
Yeah, well,
maybe I haven't slept in 4 weeks.
Well, we'll see, right? So there you go. We do the fist bump. Thank you so much.
Thanks for checking out the Super Domestique podcast. Follow us on Instagram or find us at thelastdrop.cc to learn more.